7:14 at Acadiana's Morning News, Monday, May 1st, 2017. I can't believe we've already made it to May.
It's a little shocking.
Didn't Santa Claus just come?
Like, seriously.
Santa
it's
Claus.
Weird.
Gosh, the reindeer are still resting up. It's May. But anyway.
Are you still unwrapping things? Oh, wait. That part did pass, right? Okay, wait.
Yes.
It's May.
Yes.
People are going to the beach. This is strange.
By the way, we're going to, as you heard from Daniel Phillips of the KTC Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, going to look like a cool couple days leading into some rain going into the week. We are joined now at 7:15 on Acadiana's Morning News. Jason L. Koubi from One Acadiana. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just so anxious to hear about this trip, the Lexington, Kentucky trip. We know that these trips have happened before. Hasn't Charleston been on the list? One of the places that this delegation, I guess I don't know any other way to categorize it, goes, and it's kind of a learning trip. Tell us about it.
That's right. Well, this is, we call it leadership exchange, and the idea is that as we think about the future of our city and our parish and our region, we need to do a good job of learning from the experiences of other places that are in similar situations in terms of, similar population size, similar challenges, similar opportunities. And so this is our second such trip. We went to Lexington, Kentucky. We spent about 3 days there. We had about 70 business and civic leaders with us. We had a very enjoyable time there. We had a very good opportunity to learn from that region. And I'll tell you what some of the things we saw are. First of all, one of the first things that hits you is how stunningly beautiful the bluegrass region is. One of the things that everybody on our trip remarked on is how clean it is, how little trash there was in the streets, how little trash there was in rural areas. And, it's clear that when you look at Lafayette, when you look at Acadiana, there's a culture change that we need to go through. There's a bill in the legislature right now that's being considered, filed by Representative Stuart Bishop to, I don't know all the details of the bill, but it's essentially to encourage the education of kids about the importance of good stewardship in the environment, and particularly making sure that we put trash where it belongs, which is in the bin and not in the streets. And so that was, some of it was just some of what we saw there. Some of what we came away with was, really just very, very fundamental. But, we visited with a couple of business leaders who had recently chosen to locate their manufacturing operations in the Lexington region. And one of the things that they really impressed on us is how much the county lines don't matter. And in our case, how much the parish lines just don't matter. Because if you want to be in a particular metro area where you're going to benefit from the workforce, where you're going to benefit from all of the assets, they don't care about which side of the line they're on. And I think that's not only instructive for our area, but it's really a validation of the whole One Acadiana model. Because one of the central principles of One Acadiana is that we're all in it together. We need to harness all of our resources and make sure that when we're dealing with somebody who's considering moving to this region, whether it's a business or an individual who's considering a career here, we need to make sure that we present a united front, and that we don't have kind of the friction across parish lines that you deal with sometimes in the political space.
And your employees come from different parishes.
Right.
People commute in, live in different places, so that's as important, as it goes too.
The other thing that we heard there is an attitude. There's an attitude in the bluegrass region in Lexington that is focused on making the city better, making the region better. We visited with the mayor of Lexington, and one of the things he said is he said, look, when you wake up every day in a city that's getting better, people feel better about their lives. And I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned and disappointed in how the vote went this weekend.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
We saw in Lexington a city that has some beautiful schools. They recognize that to have good public infrastructure, whether it's roads and bridges or whether it's school facilities, it's going to require a little bit of investment. And we came back from that trip saying, look, we've got to do a good job of investing in our future. We need to be competitive. We know that when somebody looks at our area, the first question and the last question they ask is about public education. There are some real concerns there, and part of the reason why there are concerns there is because the school facilities look a little bit like our streets. They look trashy, they look run down, and I'll tell you what, we were giving a tour to an executive who was looking at a job opportunity here, and we were going down Duce Road just the other day. We wanted to show this family Reds, and the person says, hey, stop right here for a second, and we did, and pointed at Woodvale, and said, well, what's that? And we said, well, that's one of our best schools. And he said, well, I know it's a school, but what's that? And of course, there were probably a dozen or so Butler buildings right there facing Duce Road. And I'll tell you, this is raising real concerns for people that could come here to create jobs, and it's a huge obstacle. And I think that the vote this weekend shows that we need to do more communication on that. We need to do a better job of explaining why, if we all make a little investment, we're talking about a 0.5-cent sales tax here.
Did you look in Lexington when you were there at the tax rate that the people have paid? Because it's not that nothing is being invested. Folks are already paying property taxes. A lot of the opponents were opposed to the increase, not opposed to what they're already paying. And, I think a lot of the thought of it was, is the money being spent responsibly as it is?
You say that, but at the same time, we this weekend rejected the renewal of 2 millages that have been on the books for multiple decades, the single biggest funding sources for the parish jail and the courthouse. And so when you think about, what are we investing in here? It's like, do we care about, having lower taxes more than we care about having lower crime? Do we care about, do we hate taxes more than we love our kids? It is a real.
I think there are a lot of people
who would say dilemma.
They pay a lot of taxes. Obviously, we've heard a lot. Several people forwarded the One Acadiana emails supporting this school board tax to us. Kind of curious, what is the interest? I think that a lot of people have their idea of what One Acadiana is, and that's bringing business and bringing jobs. I think a lot of people viewed that as kind of a little bit of a misstep with the tax. So
sure, you mean like why would a business association like One Acadiana support a dedicated tax increase in schools? At the end of the day, it's because we need to look at all of the different pros and cons of things and recognize that these are not easy decisions. We need to take a balanced approach, and in this case, we looked at the total amount of revenue that was going to our public school system, and we recognized that we were one of the lowest funded school systems in the entire state. We looked at how, when you adjust for inflation, the amount of money spent per pupil is actually down by 6% from 2009. Now, there was a lot of misleading information out there. The opponents were certainly spreading around a lot of information that was badly misleading, and I think that at least some voters were probably duped by that.
When you look, though, at the amount or the percentage, at least, of students in this parish, especially if you're doing these executive tours, that go to private and parochial schools, there's obviously a market for that, for there to be so many. We know over in St. Tammany Parish, which has one of the best school systems in the state, there are very few private schools just because there's not a need for them. Does that play into it at all when you are recruiting a company, when you're recruiting executives?
Well, what we try to do is we try to put our best foot forward and show them that we have multiple different K through 12 options, including private and parochial schools. But I'll tell you, the executives who can afford to make that choice also recognize that to be competitive, they're going to have to hire a workforce that does not have the luxury of that choice in many cases.
Yeah.
When I talk to business leaders, they tell stories about how when they're trying to recruit somebody, that person is saying, well, yeah, I know you'll pay me a little bit more so I can, send my kids to a private school if that's necessary. But you're asking me to build a team of people, and we're not going to be able to pay everybody $10,000 or $20,000 per kid more in salary and still be able to compete with similar businesses in other places. So not to mention the fact that the public school system is by far where the vast majority of our children go to school. I mean, that is just a true fact. And the reality is that we are not only sending the vast majority of our children to school in pretty terrible conditions, but I also think that we're setting their expectations for what is appropriate at a very low level. And anyway, I think that you look at the pros and cons of this thing and say, would it make sense to have an extra half-cent sales tax fully dedicated for 10 years, exempting groceries and prescription drugs? For every $100 you spend, an extra 50 cents. Would you be willing to make that sacrifice in order to substantially address the slow motion crisis of hundreds of temporary buildings? To me, the answer to that is an emphatic yes, and I think that's why the One Acadiana board was hugely supportive of it. We certainly recognize that it's tough to ask for a little more sales tax. We know that Louisiana has some of the highest sales tax rates in the country. We know that this is a difficult economic time for us, but we also know that the only way that we're going to get out of this hole is to invest in our future, to do the things that are going to make us competitive with other places. And for the folks out there who are wishing that they had more job opportunities, for the folks that are out there wishing that they had a better place to send their kids to school every morning. I mean, 6,000 kids go to school every day in these old rundown trailers.
Let me ask you,
we had an opportunity to do that, and we missed it.
What is the impact of what's going on in Baton Rouge right now, do you think, on this situation? We had a caller a little bit earlier who said, I went in there, I voted no for everything because I see what's going on at the state level, and they can't get it together. How do we know we can get it together? How does that impact, especially as you're recruiting businesses? You're looking, we often talk about inventory, land ready for business to be built. Does that play into it?
The simple answer is that it's negative. What's happening at the state level right now is a negative. It's a negative for our capacity to recruit businesses, and I think it was a negative on the outcome of this election this weekend. I think people are, hearing the call for increased taxes at the state level, and I think that is playing into how they're voting locally. And unfortunately, we saw that the opponents of this tax, purposely, use the image of Governor John Bel Edwards as a way to, get involved in a local school tax election. I think that's really unfortunate. Anyway, I think that at the end of the day, I respect how the vote came out on this, but I think it's a clear sign that we need to continue looking at how to fix this problem. This is a problem that is not going away. The school system has already made cuts. They have maximized the available resources they have for new construction, and we're still going to have hundreds of old, rundown metal trailer buildings that thousands of kids are going to go to school in every day, and they're multiple decades old. They're going to continue to deteriorate, and we do not have the resources in our school system right now to fix that problem.
All right, Jason Koubi joining us from One Acadiana. We appreciate your insight, sir. I'm sure we'll see more and more come out from the trip to Lexington. So interested to hear, the other ways that Lexington and Lafayette are similar, or at least the Acadiana area. We'll be looking out for that. Appreciate your time this morning.
Absolutely. Great to be with y'all.
Thank you so much. Have a great week. It's